The cold wind howled outside as Dr. Tae-ho Kim shined his light on the cave wall. His fingers traced the strange marks carved into the stone. They were unlike anything he had seen before. These symbols must be at least 20,000 years old, he said to himself, his breath visible in the cold air. The cave deep beneath the Korean peninsula had been found by accident when a small earthquake opened a crack in the ground last month. Tae-ho took pictures of the symbols with his device. As a xenoarchaeologist, someone who studied possible signs of alien life, he had seen many strange things, but these marks made his skin tingle with excitement. Back at his small office at Seoul University, Tae-ho uploaded the images to his computer. The room was messy with books, old coffee cups, and papers covered in notes. He had spent 10 years looking for proof that Earth had been visited long ago. Most of his co-workers thought he was wasting his time, but Tae-ho never stopped believing. His computer beeped. The system had found a match for the symbols. "This can't be right," he whispered. The screen showed the same exact shapes that had been found on Mars just 3 months ago by the RE-7 mission. Tae-ho's heart beat faster. The same symbols on 2 different planets billions of years apart? This was the proof he had been searching for his whole life. He sent a message to his old friend Dr. Ji-won Park, a deep space pilot who had flown 3 missions to Mars. "Ji-won, I found something impossible. We need to talk right away." 47. Light years from Earth. In an elegant room made of a material humans had no word for, 7 different alien species sat around a table. They made up the Galactic Council, a group of the most advanced beings in this part of the galaxy. Grand Observer Tekka, a tall, blue-skinned being with 4 arms, pointed to a hologram of Earth floating above the table. "The humans are getting closer to the truth," Tekka said. "They have now found markers on both their home planet and their neighboring red world." The council members shifted nervously. Each looked very different from the others. Some had scales, others fur, and one appeared to be made mostly of light. "The markers were placed as warnings," said a small green creature with large eyes. "All other young species have understood this. They see the danger signs and stop looking. But humans, they see a warning and take it as an invitation to look deeper." Ambassador Navi, the only one who had actually visited Earth while disguised as a human, spoke up. She looked the most human-like of the group, though her silver skin would have given her away on Earth. "The humans are curious by nature," she said. "It is their greatest strength. Maybe it could also be useful to us." "Useful?" Tekka made a sound, like breaking glass, which was how its species showed anger. "They are like children playing with fire. They have no idea what the markers are keeping locked away. Perhaps it is time they learned," Navi said quietly. No prison lasts forever. 2 weeks later, Tae-ho and Ji-won sat in a small office at the Space Agency headquarters in Busan. Ji-won wore her pilot's uniform, her short black hair neatly combed. At 42, she had seen more of space than almost anyone else on Earth. She looked at the images Tae-ho had spread across the table. "I saw these same marks on the wall of a cave on Mars," she said. "The mission leaders told us to keep it quiet until they understood what they meant." Tae-ho nodded excitedly. "And now we've found the same symbols here, in caves that have been sealed for thousands of years. This proves contact between Earth and Mars in ancient times." Ji-won looked less excited. "But what do they mean?" Some of the science team thought they might be warnings. "Or a map," Tae-ho said, pointing to one set of symbols that looked like stars. "I think these show a path to another star system, specifically Tau Ceti." Ji-won raised her eyebrows. "Tau Ceti? We just set up a research base in that system last year." "I know. And guess what? The Tau Ceti expedition reported finding similar marks on the 4th planet 3 days ago." Tae-ho could barely contain his excitement. "Ji-won, this is big. Someone, or something, left the same message on 3 different planets in 3 different star systems." "You want to go there, don't you?" Ji-won asked, already knowing the answer. "They're putting together a research team," Tae-ho said. "But they need a pilot who has experience with long-range missions, someone who's good at thinking on their feet when things go wrong." He looked at her hopefully. Ji-won sighed. "My next Mission was supposed to be a simple supply run to Mars. This is the discovery of the century, Tejo said. Maybe the biggest finding in human history. Don't you want to be part of that? After a long pause, Jiwan nodded. I'll talk to my commander, but you owe me big time for this, Tejo. 3 months later, the research ship Sehangun left Earth's orbit. On board were Tejo, Jiwan, and 18 other scientists and crew members. The ship was the newest and fastest in Earth's small fleet, but the journey to Tau Ceti would still take just over 9 months. Tejo spent most of his time studying the symbols. The ship's AI helped him create a 3-dimensional model, showing how the symbols from Earth, Mars, and the early pictures from Tau Ceti might fit together. It's like a key, he told Jiwan one day, as they floated in the ship's observation room, looking out at the stars. But I don't know what door it opens. Maybe some doors are better left closed, Jiwan said. She had been having strange dreams since they left Earth, dreams of vast dark shapes moving between the stars. At the Galactic Council, Tekka was giving orders to prepare scout ships. The humans have launched a vessel to Tau Ceti, it said. They are heading directly to one of the primary containment sites. We should stop them, said one council member. No, Ambassador Navi interrupted. We have watched from the shadows for too long. I believe it's time for first contact. First contact? Tekka's 4 hands made angry gestures. You want to reveal ourselves to them now? If not now, when? Navi asked. They are about to stumble onto something they can't possibly understand. We can guide them. After much argument, the council agreed to send a small ship to Tau Ceti. It would arrive before the humans and prepare for a controlled first meeting. Ambassador Navi would lead the mission. As she prepared to leave, Tekka approached her privately. You have always had a soft spot for these humans, it said. Do not let your feelings cloud your judgment. If they activate the site, you know what must be done. Navi nodded. The containment protocols were clear. If the ancient horrors began to wake, the entire Tau Ceti system would have to be cleansed of all life to prevent a greater catastrophe. Let us hope it doesn't come to that, she said. As the human ship Sehangun traveled through the darkness of space, its crew had no idea they were heading toward both the greatest discovery and the greatest danger humanity had ever faced. And, somewhere in the void between stars, something ancient stirred in its sleep, disturbed by the echoes of minds that dared to seek it out. The cosmic horror was beginning to awaken, and humanity was knocking on its door. The ship Sehangun slowed as it entered the Tau Ceti system. After 9 months in space, the crew was eager to begin their work. Tejo pressed his face against the viewing window, staring at the distant planets. There it is, Jiwan said, pointing to a blue-green world. Tau Ceti 4, our new home for the next 6 months. The planet had no official name yet. It was smaller than Earth, with 2 small moons. A human research base had been set up there last year with 30 people studying the planet. Any word from the base? Tejo asked. Jiwan shook her head. Not yet, but there's a lot of radiation in this system. It makes communication hard sometimes. As the ship came closer to the planet, Jiwan tried again to contact the base. Only static came back. That's strange, she said, checking her equipment. They should be answering by now. Tejo felt a cold feeling in his stomach. Something was wrong. When they finally landed near the base, they found it empty. The 30 researchers were gone, but there were no signs of a fight or trouble. Food sat on tables, half-eaten. Computers were still running. It was as if everyone had just walked away in the middle of their day. I don't like this, Jiwan said, her hand resting on her gun. They searched the base but found no people and no clues about what had happened. Then Doyen Lee, the team's quantum physicist, called them to the main lab. You need to see this, she said. On a large screen was a map of a huge underground structure, not far from the base. Notes from the missing team said they had found it 2 months ago and had been studying it since then. This is what we came for, Tejo said, looking at more pictures of the strange symbols. They were the same as those from Earth and Mars, but there were many more of them here. This structure is artificial. Someone built it. But who? And when? asked Hyun Choi, their systems specialist. She was the youngest member of the team, only 26, but one of the smartest people Tae-ho had ever met. I think we're going to find out, Tae-ho said. We leave for the site tomorrow. That night, as the humans slept in the empty base, Ambassador Navi watched them from her hidden ship. She had arrived 2 weeks earlier and had moved the original research team to safety. She had also studied the underground complex, and what she found had deeply worried her. They are going to enter the complex tomorrow, she told the Galactic Council through a secure channel. I cannot stop them without revealing myself. Then it is time, Grand Observer Tekka said. Make contact. Tell them enough to make them leave, but no more. And if they refuse to leave? Navi asked. Tekka's face showed no emotion. Then you know what must be done. The underground complex was huge. Tae-ho led the team through massive hallways made of a strange black material that seemed to absorb light. Their footsteps made no sound, as if the floor was swallowing all noise. This place must be millions of years old, Doyen said, running her hand along a wall. But it looks like it was built yesterday. The symbols were everywhere, covering the walls from floor to ceiling. Tae-ho took pictures and videos, trying to capture everything. In the center of the complex, they found a large round room with a tall pillar in the middle. The pillar was covered in blinking lights, as if a machine was running inside it. It's still active, Hyun said in wonder. After all this time, she walked to a flat panel on the wall that looked like a control system. Strange shapes glowed on its surface. Don't touch anything, Jiwon warned. But it was too late. Hyun's fingers had already pressed a symbol that looked like a star. The room filled with light. The floor began to hum. Then, in the center of the room, the air seemed to tear open. A hole appeared in empty space, and through it stepped 5 strange beings. The humans froze in shock. 4 of the aliens were clearly guards, tall with blue skin and multiple arms. But the 5th was different, silver-skinned and almost human-like. I am Ambassador Navi of the Galactic Council, the silver being said in perfect English. And you are making a terrible mistake. For several minutes, no one spoke. Then Tae-ho stepped forward. You speak our language, he said. It was the only thing he could think to say. We have been studying your species for a very long time, Navi replied. We had hoped to make contact under better circumstances. Where are our people? The research team? Jiwon asked, her hand moving toward her gun. They are safe, Navi said. We moved them to protect them, and to protect this solar system. She looked at the pillar. Do you have any idea what this place is? Tae-ho looked around at the complex. It's some kind of ancient building. We found similar symbols on Earth and Mars. They are not buildings, Navi said. They are locks. This entire complex is a containment system, built to keep something imprisoned, something old, something that should never be freed. Hyun stepped away from the control panel. What do you mean, imprisoned? What's in here? Not in here, Navi pointed upward. Out there, in the space between stars. She turned to Tae-ho. The symbols you found are warnings, Dr. Kim. They were left by a species that vanished long ago, after they trapped these entities. We call them the Void Weavers. Back on the Sehungun, the humans sat across from Navi, trying to process what they had learned. The 4 blue guards stood silently by the door. Every intelligent species in our records has found these warnings, Navi explained. When they understood what the symbols meant, they stopped looking. They left the containment systems alone, all except humans. What makes us different? Doyun asked. You question everything. Where others see danger and retreat, you see mystery and advance. Your curiosity overrides your fear. Navi leaned forward. It makes you unpredictable, dangerous. Is that why your council watches us? Tae-ho asked. Navi nodded. We monitor all developing species, but humans concern us the most. You develop so quickly, and you take risks no other species would consider. That's not fair, Jiwon said. We're explorers. We want to learn. And what will you learn by waking ancient horrors? Navi asked. The Void Weavers exist in dimensions beyond your understanding. To them, your reality is as thin as paper. They can tear through it without even trying. Hyun looked worried. Did I wake something up when I touched that panel? No, Navi said. Not yet, but you were close. That is why I revealed myself. You must leave this system immediately. What Navi didn't tell them was that the Council had already detected small changes in the space around Tau Ceti. Something was stirring in its ancient sleep, and she had been given clear orders. If the humans refused to leave, she was to destroy the entire research team before they could do more damage. We need time to study this, Taeho said. We can be careful. Navi shook her head. The Council has agreed to give you 48 hours to gather your things and leave. After that, you will not be welcome here. After Navi left, the humans argued among themselves. Should they obey and leave? Or should they stay and learn more about these ancient beings and the aliens who feared them? They're hiding something, Doyen said. Why wouldn't they want us to study these Void Weavers? What if they're not dangerous at all? Or what if they're worse than Navi described? Jiwon countered. As they debated, none of them noticed the small light blinking on Hyun's tablet. Something in the underground complex had activated. A signal was now traveling outward, beyond the solar system, into the deep void between stars. The key. First lock had been opened, and something ancient was beginning to stir. Taeho couldn't sleep. He sat in the research base's control room studying the images of the symbols they had collected. Something about Navi's explanation didn't feel right to him. Still working? Doyen asked, walking into the room with 2 cups of coffee. She handed one to Taeho. These symbols, Taeho said. They're not just warnings. Look at this pattern here. He pointed to a series of marks that repeated on several walls. If they wanted to warn people away, why make the message so complex? A simple danger sign would work better. Doyen sat down next to him. What do you think they are then? Instructions, Taeho said. Or maybe a story. I think there's more to these Void Weavers than Navi is telling us. The next morning, despite Navi's warnings, the team returned to the underground complex. They had less than 24 hours before they were supposed to leave the system. Jiwon was against the plan, but she came along to keep everyone safe. We'll just look, Taeho promised. No touching anything. Inside the complex, Hyun checked her tablet. Something's different, she said. The energy readings are higher than yesterday. They moved to the central room with the pillar. The lights on it were blinking faster now and the humming sound was louder. It's active, Doyen said, scanning the pillar with her equipment. And look at this. It's generating quantum entanglement patterns on a massive scale. What does that mean? Jiwon asked. It means this device is somehow connected to something very far away, Doyen explained. Quantum entanglement lets particles affect each other instantly across any distance, but I've never seen it working on this scale before. Taeho studied the control panel that Hyun had touched the day before. More symbols were glowing now. I think this is some kind of prison, he said, but not a physical one. It's holding something somewhere else. In another dimension, maybe. And it's failing, Hyun said, looking at her readings. Whatever happened when I touched that panel, it started a process we can't stop. In the Galactic Council's ship, alarms were blaring. Navi stared at the screen showing the humans back in the complex. They didn't listen, one of the Blue Guards said. We should remove them now. Navi held up a hand. Wait, let me try once more. But before she could contact the humans, a message came in from the Council. Grand Observer Tekka's face appeared on the screen. The containment is weakening, Tekka said. We are detecting reality distortions in the Tau Ceti system. The Void Weaver is awakening. The humans have only been studying it, Navi argued. They haven't fully activated anything. It doesn't matter how it started, Tekka replied. Our sensors show the entity will break free within days. We are preparing the cleansing protocol. Navi knew what that meant. The Council would destroy the entire Tau Ceti system. including all the humans there and on nearby research stations. Give me time, she pleaded. Let me talk to the humans again. Their thinking is different from ours. They might see a solution we can't. After a long pause, Tekka nodded. You have 48 hours. Then we act. Back at the base, the humans were arguing about what to do next. Jiwon wanted to leave immediately, following Navi's instructions. Taiho and Doyen wanted to keep studying the complex. We're at the edge of the biggest discovery in human history, Taiho said. We can't just walk away. We might not have a choice, Hyun said, staring at her tablet. Look at this. She showed them new readings from the planet's orbit. Strange energy patterns were appearing in the space around Tau Ceti. The stars visible from the base seemed to be moving in impossible ways. Something's happening to space itself, Doyun said, her voice filled with wonder and fear. Just then, the main door opened, and Navi walked in alone. Her silver skin seemed to glow in the room's light. You were told to stay away from the complex, she said. There was no anger in her voice, only sadness. We needed to know more, Taiho said. Your warning wasn't enough. That is exactly the problem with humans, Navi said, sitting down. A warning is never enough for you. You always need to see the danger for yourselves. What's happening out there? Hyun asked, pointing to her tablet showing the energy distortions. The Void Weaver is awakening, Navi said. The containment system was already weak after millions of years. Your tampering has given the entity a way to break through. What exactly is this Void Weaver? Doyen asked. You keep saying it's dangerous, but you never explain why. Navi was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then she said, the Void Weavers existed before our universe took its current shape. They live in dimensions beyond what you can perceive. When they touch our reality, they change it, warp it. Not out of malice, they simply exist in ways that break our physics. Like a human stepping on an anthill, Taiho suggested. We don't hate the ants, but we destroy their world without even noticing. Yes, Navi nodded. And now the Council has decided to destroy this system to contain the threat. The humans stared at her in shock. They can't do that, Jiwon said. There are thousands of people in this system now. Research teams, mining operations, the new colony on Tau Ceti 6. The Council believes sacrificing one star system is better than risking the Void Weaver spreading, Navi said. I've bought you some time, but not much. We have less than 2 days. That night, everyone had terrible dreams. Taiho saw strange shapes moving between stars, vast things with too many angles that hurt his eyes. Doyen dreamed of equations that solved themselves in impossible ways. Hyun dreamed she was falling through layers of reality, each one stranger than the last. When they woke, the sky above the base had changed. The stars seemed to be in the wrong places. 2 suns now hung in the sky, even though Tau Ceti was a single-star system. It's starting, Navi said, looking up at the impossible sky. The Void Weaver is pushing through into our reality. Reports came in from other human bases in the system. People were seeing things that couldn't exist. Some reported time moving. Backward or sideways, 3 research stations had gone completely silent. The Council fleet will be here in 30 hours, Navi told them. They will destroy this entire system. There must be another way, Taiho said. The ancient builders didn't destroy the Void Weavers, they contained them. We could try to repair the containment system. Impossible, Navi said. We don't understand how it works. Maybe you don't, Doyen said suddenly. She had been quiet all morning, working on her computer. But I think I might. Hey, the quantum entanglement patterns are like nothing I've seen before, but they follow rules. Mathematical rules I can almost grasp. What are you saying? Jiwon asked. I'm saying we might be able to talk to it, Doyen replied. Not with words, but with math, with quantum signals. The containment system isn't just a prison, it's a translator. Taiho looked at Navi. Has any species ever tried to communicate with a Void Weaver? Navi shook her head. Never. We've always seen them as mindless forces, like storms or black holes. That's your mistake, Taiho said. You assume they're mindless because they're different. But different doesn't mean mindless, it just means we need a new way to understand them. As the sky continued to change above them and reality itself seemed to bend, the humans began to form a desperate plan. If they couldn't fix the prison, perhaps they could negotiate with the prisoner. It was something no other species had even considered trying. And as the council fleet approached, ready to destroy everything, the humans raced back to the underground complex for one final, desperate attempt to save not just themselves, but perhaps the Void Weaver too. The sky above Tau Ceti 4 was no longer black with stars. It swirled with colors that had no names, shapes that made no sense. The two suns had been joined by a third, then a fourth, all impossible and yet clearly visible. In the research base, Jiwan received an emergency call from a mining station on the system's outer asteroid belt. "They're seeing things," she told the others. "People walking through walls, objects moving on their own. Time running at different speeds in different rooms." "Reality is breaking down," Navi said. "The barriers between dimensions are failing." Doyen had barely slept, working on complex equations. Her eyes were red, her hands shaky. "I think I understand part of how the containment system works," she said. "It doesn't just hold the Void Weaver. It translates its existence into something our universe can handle." "Like a filter?" Taeho asked. "More like an adapter," Doyen explained. "The Void Weaver exists in more dimensions than we can perceive. The system converts its higher dimensional form into something that can partially exist in our three-dimensional space, without breaking everything. And now that filter is failing," Hayun added, looking up from her tablet. "That's why reality is coming apart." Outside, a strange rain began to fall, droplets that moved upward instead of down, that split into smaller drops before hitting the ground. "The council fleet will be here in 10 hours, Navi said. "We're running out of time." "Then we need to go back to the complex now," Taeho said. "If Doyen is right, we might be able to modify the system to communicate with the Void Weaver." "It's too dangerous," Jiwan argued. "Look outside. Who knows what we'll find in the complex now?" "We don't have a choice," Taeho replied. "If we do nothing, the council will destroy this entire system." Navi looked at the humans with new respect. Her species would have fled by now. Most species would, but these humans were running toward the danger, not away from it. "I will come with you," she said. The journey to the complex was strange and frightening. The ground sometimes shifted under their feet. Trees appeared and disappeared. At one point, they walked through a forest that hadn't been there before, where the leaves fell upward into the sky. When they finally reached the entrance to the complex, they found it had changed. The doorway was now a perfect circle that seemed to lead into endless darkness. "The Void Weaver's influence is stronger here," Navi said, her voice tight with fear. They stepped through the doorway together. Inside, the complex was both familiar and horribly different. The walls still stood, but they bent at impossible angles. The symbols glowed with shifting light, and the hallways seemed to stretch on forever, even though they had been limited before. "Stay close," Taeho said. "Don't get separated." They made their way toward the central chamber with the pillar. As they got closer, they began to hear a strange sound, like music played on instruments that couldn't exist. When they finally reached the central chamber, they stopped in shock. The pillar was no longer a solid object. It had become a swirling column of light and darkness, reaching from floor to ceiling. Around it, reality itself seemed to be folding and unfolding like paper. And in the center of the column, something was taking shape. The Void Weaver was emerging. "We're too late," Navi whispered. The shape in the column kept changing. Sometimes it looked like a mass of tentacles, sometimes like a collection of cubes, sometimes like nothing they could describe. It hurt their eyes to look at it directly. "The translator is trying to convert its form into something we can perceive," Doyun said, "but it can't keep up." Hayun moved to the control panel, which was now floating in the air instead of attached to the wall. "The system is still running," she said. "If we can modify it, redirect its power." "Let me help," Doyen said, joining her at the panel. We need to stabilize the quantum field first, then reset the translation protocols. As they worked, the thing in the column seemed to notice them. Part of it reached out, not a tentacle exactly, but something like one. Where it touched the air, colors changed and the laws of physics bent. It's aware of us, Tejo said. He stepped forward, toward the column. Can you hear me? He asked the thing. Can you understand us? The reaching part of the entity paused, hovering in the air. Tejo, be careful, Jiwan called. I don't think it wants to hurt us, Tejo said. I think it's just now existing. And its existence happens to break our reality. Behind them, Doyun and Hayun worked frantically on the control panel. Symbols rearranged themselves under their fingers. We're making progress, Doyun said. The Yao system was designed to be adaptable. I think we can modify it to handle the Void Weaver's presence better. How long will it take? Navi asked, checking the time. The Council fleet will be here in 8 hours. I don't know, Doyun admitted. This is all new territory. Suddenly, the thing in the column moved. The room filled with light so bright, they had to shield their eyes. When they could see again, a new shape stood before them. It was roughly humanoid, but made of swirling light and darkness. Its edges were blurry, as if it wasn't fully in their reality. It's trying to communicate, Tejo realized. It's taking a form we might understand. The figure raised what might have been an arm. The walls around them filled with new symbols, different from the ancient ones. These shifted and changed as they watched. It's talking to us, Hayun said. But I don't understand. Keep working on the translator, Tejo told Doyun and Hayun. I'll try to communicate directly. He turned to the figure and pointed to himself. Tejo, he said. Then he pointed to the others, saying each name. Finally, he pointed to the figure, raising his eyebrows in question. The figure made a sound like no voice they had ever heard, high and low at the same time, somehow containing many tones at once. Void Weaver, Tejo said, giving it the name they had been using. We want to help you. We want to fix the translator so you can exist here without breaking our reality. The figure tilted its head, as if trying to understand. Then it raised both arms. Around them, the complex began to change again. Walls became transparent. Ceilings vanished, showing the strange sky outside. The floor turned to something like glass, revealing more complex machinery below. It's showing us the full complex, Navi said in awe. Parts we couldn't see before. Hayun's eyes widened as she looked at her tablet. I'm getting readings from everywhere now. I can see how the whole system works. It's helping us, Doyun said, her fingers flying over the control panel. With this information, I think we can stabilize the translator. Navi checked the time again. 7 hours until the fleet arrives. We need to work faster, Jiwan said, and we need to contact the council, tell them to stop the attack. They won't listen, Navi said, not unless we can prove the Void Weaver is contained. The figure of light and darkness moved closer to Tejo. It reached out one shifting hand and pointed to his head. I think it wants to communicate directly, Tejo said. He looked at the others. I'm going to let it. Tejo, no. Jiwan stepped forward. It could destroy your mind. We don't have time for anything else, Tejo said. He turned to the figure and nodded. The hand of light touched his forehead. Tejo gasped and fell to his knees. His eyes rolled back, showing only white. His body began to shake. Stop it! Jiwan shouted, running toward them. But before she could reach Tejo, Navi caught her arm. Wait, the ambassador said. Look. Tejo had stopped shaking. He stood slowly, his eyes still pure white. When he spoke, his voice echoed strangely, as if coming from very far away. I understand now, he said, and it understands us. Everyone stood frozen, staring at Tejo. His eyes were still pure white, and when he spoke, his voice had a strange echo, as if many voices were speaking at once. We have been asleep for billions of your years, Tejo said. Trapped, contained, misunderstood. Who are you? Navi asked. I am the one you call Void Weaver. I exist in ways your reality cannot easily hold. Teho turned to look at each of them. But I am not your enemy. If you're not our enemy, why does your presence break our reality? Jiwan asked, still wary. I do not mean to harm your world, Taiho said. When a three-dimensional object passes through a two-dimensional plane, it appears to the plane dwellers as a changing, impossible shape. I am like that object, and your universe is like that plane. Doyen nodded slowly. Higher dimensional physics. That makes sense. She turned back to the control panel. If that's true, we might be able to adjust the translator to handle your presence better. Teho walked to the control panel. His movements were strange, as if he wasn't used to having a human body. The builders of this place feared us. They did not try to understand. They built prisons across the stars. The ancient warnings, Hayun said, they were made by the beings who trapped you. Yes, they captured many of my kind. They thought we were destroying their reality on purpose. They did not understand we were just trying to exist alongside them. Navi checked the time again. The council fleet will be here in 5 hours. We need to prove we have the situation under control. Can you go back? Jiwan asked the Void Weaver. Return to your sleep until we find a better solution? I cannot, Teho said. The awakening has gone too far, but I can help you adjust this system. It was never meant to be a prison. It was designed as a bridge between realities. A bridge? Navi looked shocked. All our records say these are containment systems. Your records come from the builders, who feared us. They built the systems to contain us, but they did not understand what they had really created. Teho touched the control panel, and new symbols appeared. These systems could allow safe contact between our realities, if properly adjusted. That's what we need to do, Doyen said. Modify the system from a prison to a controlled interface. For the next 3 hours, they worked together. The Void Weaver, speaking through Taiho, guided Doyen and Hayun as they reprogrammed the ancient system. Jiwan kept watch outside, reporting on the strange changes in the sky. Slowly, the impossible colors began to fade. The extra suns disappeared one by one, until only the real Tao Cheti remained. It's working, Hayun said. Reality is stabilizing. We need to tell the council, Navi said. Show them what we've done. But when she tried to contact her ship, there was no response. They're blocking communications, she said. They've already decided. Then we need to do more than fix this world, Jiwan said. We need to prove to them that the Void Weaver isn't a threat. How? Navi asked. They've feared these beings for thousands of years. They won't change their minds easily. The Void Weaver was silent for a moment, Teho's white eyes staring at nothing. Then he said, I can show them, but I will need your help. 2 hours later, the council fleet appeared in the Tau Ceti system. 20 massive ships led by Grand Observer Tekka's command vessel. They moved into position around the 4th planet, preparing to destroy it. Energy weapons charging, reported one of Tekka's officers. Target locked. Wait. Navi's voice came through on the communication system. Grand Observer, you must see this before you act. Ambassador Navi, Tekka said. You were ordered to evacuate. The cleansing protocol has been approved. Things have changed, Navi said. The humans have found another way. They're not containing the entity. They're communicating with it. Impossible, Tekka said, but there was doubt in its voice. See for yourself, Navi said. We're sending you visual now. The screen on Tekka's ship changed, showing the underground complex. The central chamber had been transformed. The swirling column of light was still there, but it was stable now, not chaotic. Around it stood the humans and Navi, and next to them was a figure made of light and shadow, roughly humanoid in shape. What is this? Tekka demanded. What have you done? We found what the ancient builders missed, Navi explained. The systems they built weren't just prisons. They were translation interfaces. The Void Weavers aren't monsters or mindless horrors. They're intelligent beings from higher dimensions. This is human deception, said one of the council members. It must be. Then come and see for yourself, Navi challenged. Send a team. See what the humans have accomplished. After much argument, Tekka agreed to send a small team to the surface. An hour later, 5 council representatives stood in the central chamber staring in disbelief at the Void Weaver. Teho, his eyes still white, explained what they had discovered. The Void Weaver exists in more dimensions than we do. When it enters our space without a proper interface, our reality breaks down trying to contain it, like pouring too much water into a small cup. But with the right interface, we can communicate safely. This defies everything we've believed for thousands of years, Tekka said. Perhaps it's time for new beliefs, Navi suggested. To demonstrate the success of their work, the Void Weaver released its connection to Taiho. His eyes returned to normal and he stumbled slightly. Jiwan caught him before he could fall. Are you okay? She asked. Yes, Taiho said, his voice normal again. It was incredible. I saw things I can't even describe. The figure of light and shadow moved to the central column, then turned to face the council members. It made a series of gestures and symbols appeared in the air. It's thanking us, Hayun translated, looking at her tablet, and offering to communicate with the council directly. Tekka stepped back. We are not prepared for such contact. Then perhaps you should prepare, Teho said. Because there are more Void Weavers out there, in other containment systems. And now that we know the truth, we can't just leave them imprisoned. You would release them all? Tekka sounded horrified. Not release, Doyun corrected. Communicate, build proper interfaces, learn from them. The danger, Tekka began, is much less than you thought, Navi interrupted. These humans have proven that. They faced what you feared and found understanding instead of horror. We need time to consider this, Tekka said finally. The council must debate. 6 months later, Taiho stood on a platform overlooking the central chamber. The complex had been expanded, with new rooms and equipment brought by both humans and the council. Scientists from a dozen alien species now worked there, studying the Void Weaver and the technology that allowed safe communication. The council's finally approved the expedition to the Sirius system, Jiwan said, joining him on the platform. They want you to lead it. Another Void Weaver containment site? Teho asked. Yes. And they think it might be even older than this one. Teho smiled. Did you ever think, when we found those symbols in that cave on Earth, that we'd end up here? Changing how the galaxy understands reality? That's what humans do, Jiwan said. We don't just accept mysteries, we solve them. In the center of the chamber, the Void Weaver's form shifted and changed as it communicated with a group of scientists. Through the new interface, it could share its knowledge of dimensions beyond normal space-time. Already, this knowledge had led to breakthroughs in physics, medicine, and space travel. Ambassador Navi thinks there might be dozens of Void Weavers throughout the galaxy, Jiwan continued. Maybe hundreds, each with different knowledge to share. And we'll be the ones to find them, Teho said. The species that isn't afraid to awaken ancient cosmic horrors and discover they weren't horrors at all. As they watched the Void Weaver teach, neither of them noticed the small symbol that had appeared on the far wall. A new set of coordinates, pointing to another star, another world. Another ancient entity waiting to be understood rather than feared. Humanity's journey into the cosmic unknown was just beginning. The end.